Good afternoon, everyone. I would always say good morning and good evening, depending on where you are joining us from, right? Welcome to this month's edition of our Fintech and Payment Institute's webinar. My name is Betty Akest, and I'm thrilled to be here once again. As you may know, October is Cyber Security Month, and also a month where we celebrate our customers. So we have a whole week of celebration for our customers, right? But deliberating on it, as we celebrate Customer Service Week and cybersecurity this month, it's clear how vital cybersecurity is in protecting our customers' data and financial transactions. So I see cybersecurity to be a very critical role in ensuring a safe and secure service experience. Today, we'll be exploring an important topic for the fintech industry, cybersecurity in fintech. So cybersecurity, just to give a brief introduction into the topic, is the shield that protects our digital assets, safeguarding sensitive information from the ever-evolving cyber threats we are currently facing, right? And the fintech industry grows, or as the fintech industry grows, so do the challenges of ensuring secure platforms for customers and businesses alike. During today's session, we will take a closer look at the Cybersecurity Act and its implications for fintech organizations. I'm thrilled to have Nee, who is a seasoned expert in the field, here to lead us through an insightful presentation on the. He will cover essential aspects of cybersecurity over the next 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A session. But before we get into it, this is just a quick reminder, all right? This session is being recorded and will be made available on our social media platforms. So you can go there and then refresh your memory, listen to it again, and engage with us. All right, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today. Our guest speaker is by the name Nee Abeka Jeshi. He is an astute consultant with over 15 years experience spanning from cyber and information security management, enterprise risk management, information technology governance, IT infrastructure, cybersecurity incident response, digital risk protection services, vulnerability management, service desk management, and etc. Right? He also has experience in the IT advisory and consulting industry, which was honed from SGSSB, KPMG, the Snatch Group, and the likes. He's delivered information and cybersecurity consulting services as well as training to clients in diverse industries. I can go on and on and on because he has a lot of credentials, right? But I will stop here and welcome him to our webinar for today. So Nee, if you are ready, you can kindly share your screen. Okay, yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure being here to meet all of you electronically and also to share a few words on cybersecurity with you.
Great to have you too, Nee.
Okay, I hope my screen is visible to all.
Okay, just project it. Let's go into the presenter mode. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So yeah, cybersecurity within the fintech industry has evolved over the years. And before 2018, organizations within the fintech space had to actually handle their own cybersecurity, or had to choose what controls they want to implement or how they want to go about their security. But then the central bank in 2008 took an initiative where it issued a directive bordering on information and cybersecurity to all organizations that it regulates. And therefore, it propelled the need for some standards to be implemented within the financial space. Sequel to that, we've had other initiatives from other regulators as well. And most especially, we've had sorry, I think my screen is not moving. Let me just share again. Apologies for this mishap. Don't know why my screen is not moving.
Honey, your screen is frozen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can share from your end for me.
You want us to share from our end? Okay.
That would be
okay.
very helpful.
Okay, let me do that right away. Okay. Okay, so as we set to project the screen, during the registrations, right, we asked the audience to give us some few questions. Some just want to know more about what cybersecurity is all about. Those who are in the fintech industry too were kind of curious to know something. So let me just share a question. We can discuss it briefly whilst we get the projection done. So I have a question here. This person is saying that what does cybersecurity entail within the fintech industry, and why is it crucial?
Okay. So the word cyber itself means internet. And once you join internet, which we call the cyberspace, you are joining a world made up of so many devices or connections, which includes but not limited to people. So you may be in Ghana, Joining the internet means that you are connected to somebody maybe in Switzerland. And so you're joining a world of so many devices. Now, once you are joining them, which we call the Internet of Things, so you're joining people, you're joining devices, and so many networks, it puts you at risk. Therefore, cybersecurity is basically measures you put in place to protect you whilst you are in cyberspace. And as fintechs, or within the fintech industry, their infrastructure is mostly cloud-based. And so it is imperative that once they are also within cyberspace, there's some level of protection to make sure that all their systems, people, and other processes are in safe hands. And that is what cybersecurity seeks to do. So it seeks to protect you whilst you work on the internet.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I mean, from the explanation, it doesn't really cut across just the fintechs. Everybody and every organization will benefit from that. Thank you so much. Okay, I see the presentation up. So I think we can continue from here.
Thank you so much. Just to backtrack again. So before 2018, we had most organizations having to put in measures to protect themselves without regulation. But in 2008, the Bank of Ghana took the lead by issuing out a directive on information security to ensure that all organizations that it regulates put in some level of measures or some measures to mitigate or to protect their assets. Next slide, please. And then sequel to that, there's been a lot of conversation around cybersecurity within Ghana. And this is because there's been an increase in attack on critical infrastructure within nation states, not just Ghana. And this actually puts the economies of these countries in jeopardy. And so in recent times, we've seen cyber attacks on power grids, on electoral systems. Within the payment industry, we've seen cyber attacks. And once these things happen, it actually sort of disrupts the economic activities within the country. And in lieu of that, the Ministry of Communications in 2020 actually got a law passed, which is the Cybersecurity Act of Ghana, and it's actually Act 1038. Now, the objective of this act is basically to regulate cybersecurity activities in the country, to promote the development of cybersecurity in the country, and to provide for related matters. So what the act sought to also do is that it established a cybersecurity authority whose mandate is to regulate cybersecurity activities in the country, to promote the development of cybersecurity in the country, and to provide for related matters. Again, then the act actually defined what critical information infrastructure we have in Ghana. So what are the organizations whose information are critical or whose assets are critical to the Republic of Ghana, such that if there is an attack on any of these organizations, economic activities will come to a halt. Until the law was passed so that we have a legal backing, we have a regulator, that is the Cybersecurity Authority, and then also we have defined infrastructure which we want to protect for the Republic of Ghana. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as mentioned, in 2020, December, the 29th December 2020, the act was actually assented to. And then again, September 23rd, 2021, the Minister of Communications actually designated 13 sectors, or identified 13 sectors that will be critical to, or that has critical information that once there is an attack or once there is a breach on this infrastructure, the Republic of Ghana can actually be thoroughly affected. Then again, they launched what we call the Directive for Protection of Critical Information Infrastructure, after which the Cybersecurity Authority was established to actually regulate, as I mentioned, the mandate for which the law was passed. And so, the law was passed to help the nation, as the nation Ghana, to be able to regulate cybersecurity activities. And then we identified, or the minister identified 13 in sectors that are critical, after which a directive was issued out to these 13 sectors, and then an authority was set up to actually regulate or ensure that these sectors abide by whatever measures are in the directive. And these sectors are, we have the National Security and Intelligence, we have ICT, we have energy, we have water, we have transportation, we have health, we have emergency services, we have the government, we have food and agriculture, we have manufacturing, we have mining, we have education, and most importantly, banking and finance. And that is where fintech falls, or that is where financial technology organizations fall. And so the fintechs are actually within the critical information infrastructure of the Republic of Ghana. And you'll bear with me, they are critical because in recent times, because of digitalization, we have ourselves engaging or using the services of fintech every now and then. And therefore, they hold some substantial amount of traffic relative to finance, and thus they also need to be protected adequately. And so the directive sought to ensure that the critical information infrastructure organizations at least have some minimum level of cybersecurity requirements in place. And every fintech owner or every CII owner is meant to ensure that these measures are in place. And the first is policy. And so, yes, as an organization, there has to be a policy, and policies are usually defined as formal statements of intent from top management to formally establish requirements to guide decisions and objectives. So as a CII owner or as a director or as an owner of a fintech, you are meant to actually outline formal statements relative to cybersecurity, which should help guide decisions and achieve outcomes. Then the directive also sought to bring out some technical measures, and these measures are meant to help the organizations and to protect the information and assets of the organization. And we'll look at that in the subsequent slides. And then the last bit is that because these critical information infrastructure organizations are very important to the Republic of Ghana, anytime there are undesired issues, they should ensure they fix those issues and also report the issues to the Cybersecurity Authority. And so 3 things here: they have to be a policy, there are technical measures, and then there are also they have to report on incidents. So yes, policies are, as I explained earlier, are meant to be formal statements of intent from top management. And these policies should contain what we call controls. Basically, a control is a measure to mitigate any uncertainty. So in as much as the authority or the CII directive states certain controls, it is expected that these controls or these technical measures will be in policies, and these policies would have to be approved and communicated by management. And so the policy should contain measures to mitigate any uncertainty that could befall the business. And there are so many of them. I mean, there are various types. There are administrative measures, there are legal measures, there are technical measures, all coming together to help protect the organization from any uncertainty. And when I say uncertainty, I mean risk. Risk, as defined by the international standard for risk management, says that a risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Others will say that a risk is when a threat exploits a weakness and there is impact. And as organizations, fintechs are not immune to any uncertainty. Even as human beings, waking up is a risk, having to go out is a risk, having to work is a risk. And so we face so many uncertainties every now and then. Therefore, we also put in measures to ensure that we are able to mitigate some of these risks. I was telling somebody that once you wake up and you decide to walk barefooted, you are actually putting your feet at risk. And so what you want to do is that, because you know that you could have a needle or you could have a nail actually hurting you, you decide to wear shoes. So that is you trying to mitigate or fix the risk of you being hurt. And so as organizations, fintechs also face risk every now and then. And so these measures, and at large, the directive from the Cybersecurity Authority is meant to help them mitigate or fix or avoid some of these uncertainties or some of these risks that may befall them as they operate. Yeah, so the first that I talked about is on policy. And the directive says that management or owners of this critical information infrastructure, and so for that matter, fintechs, should develop and implement policies which I've explained. And these policies should address uncertainties, that is risk, uncertainties on business objectives, that is risk. And it should be consistent with international best practices identified that are relevant to the identified sector. And so yes, there has to be a policy, but these policies would have to be consistent with international best practices that are relevant to the identified sector. To some extent, so the Bank of Ghana's directive, which I mentioned, actually indicated the standard that the cybersecurity measures should be pegged with. And one of these standards is ISO 27001 and other international standards. Then subsequently, if the Cybersecurity Authority, which is the main body mandated to regulate cybersecurity activities within the country, issues out any policy directive, it has to be adhered to. And in light of this, the Cybersecurity Authority not only regulates activities, they do more. They also do more of awareness, promotion, and so on and so forth. And more importantly, they also license cybersecurity organizations and cybersecurity individuals like myself, so that even if you need to work for, you're a cybersecurity person and you're working for a critical information infrastructure, you would have to actually be licensed by the Bank of Ghana, by the Cybersecurity Authority. And to some extent, if you own a cybersecurity firm in the country, there are various tiers. You also need to be licensed by the Cybersecurity Authority. And some of the directors of the cybersecurity companies will also need to be licensed by the Cybersecurity Authority. And I must say that we got our license just last month, just last month. So on point 3, you see that they have as a CII, you need to appoint somebody responsible for cybersecurity. Then we have technical measures. I will not glance through all, but I'll just go through to give you a picture of what is required to help protect fintechs whilst they operate, and with particular focus on cybersecurity. So first, it says that every fintech or every CII should identify all its assets, classify the assets, and then have detailed information on the assets. Then it goes on to say that, okay, if once you know all your assets, and some international standards will tell you that assets include information, it includes people, it includes your hardware, it includes software, it includes other non-tangibles like data or information, which was mentioned, even contracts and so on and so forth. So the organization needs to identify all that. And then once you've identified all that, it says that you need to control and manage how people access the system. And that is because you don't want any unauthorized person or any person who has not been approved to access your system to be able to do so. Then the third one talks about supply chain attacks, supply chain. So now in recent times, I'm sure some of us have heard about the CrowdStrike attack quite recently, so CrowdStrike is a vendor to Microsoft, and CrowdStrike was attacked, but then we had Microsoft machines all going off and so on and so forth. So now what people do, or bad actors do, is that if they know that you have a vendor and your data is resident with the vendor and they want to target you, they don't attack you, but they will rather attack the vendor. And so this measure seeks to say that we need to protect information that is even resident with our third parties or our vendors, and also to ensure that we are actually identifying uncertainties or risk, uncertainties that could, the effect of uncertainties that could affect business objectives. We are actually mitigating that. Then again, the people who work for fintechs, the directive is saying that there should be security screening for all people who are going to work for or who work for fintechs. The fourth part is that within the security chain, we always say that human beings are the weakest, and that is because if you tell a machine let's use our phones. If you set an alarm on your phone and you've charged the phone and you say, phone, wake me up at 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, the phone will definitely, the alarm would ring. If you tell a human being to wake me up at 5 o'clock, you are not certain because he or she may sleep. And so human beings, we always say, are the weakest link within security. And so the directive is saying that we should ensure that there is some level of training, cybersecurity training, that is given to all staff on a regular basis, so that the staff who work for fintechs or CII organizations will be aware of the threats they face and what to do when they meet these threats. Then it also talks about our physical premises. So where fintechs, the physical locations of fintechs should be adequately secured so that there is no unauthorized access or people do not just walk into the offices of fintechs. Remember that in talking about assets, I did mention about people. And so human beings are also assets of an organization. Thereby, they also need to be protected. And so there has to be some level of physical security. And that is why when you visit some offices or some banks, you notice that there are turnstiles, there are security guards, there are access controls, there are places they tell you can't sit, you can't move You can't go here. You see notices with authorized access only and so on. This is to protect people or assets within those environments. And so it's also a measure that the directive seeks to enforce. Then it says that now every software that we use has some level of vulnerability. And that is why in recent or every now and then, for those of us who use Windows laptops or machines, every now and then there is an update we need to run. That is because they try and identify weaknesses within the software and ensure that there are updates to fix those weaknesses. And that is why we have those regular updates every now and then from Microsoft. And so the directive seeks to say that we have to ensure we update our software regularly, so as to ensure that weaknesses within the software are not exploited by threat actors. Also, it says that the organization should be prepared for any disaster. So we all knew what COVID, or we all felt the impact of COVID. And one of the things that people didn't have, organizations didn't have at the time, was what we call business continuity plans. So what a business continuity plan will do is to make sure to give you resilience and to make sure that, okay, in the event that this happens to me, how do I recover quickly? Before COVID, most organizations didn't have a business continuity plan to say that if there is a pandemic in Ghana, how do I make sure my staff work from home, and how do I make sure business operates? So the directive is telling fintechs that what you need to do is to have a plan to say that in the event that there's a major incident or there's a disaster, how do I recover quickly? And that is point 8, so that it doesn't affect your business operations. Then 9 says that we should quarterly identify weaknesses within our IT systems, so that we are able to fix those weaknesses we identify promptly. Now, if somebody wants to attack you, they exploit weaknesses within your environment. And so point 9 talks about ensuring that we identify weaknesses and then fix those cybersecurity weaknesses. Point 10 says that there should be cybersecurity audits, and this should be in compliance with the law. So periodically, you need to have some level of assurance. So you bring in an auditor to audit what measures you have relative to cybersecurity on your people, on your processes and technology, to ensure that you are in compliance. Then you also need to promptly identify effects of uncertainties. I earlier talked about risk. So you need to promptly identify or proactively identify these effects of uncertainties to objectives, and you document. So you document and you keep track, and you fix the ones that are very critical to you, or the ones that once it happens are very critical. So you are proactively trying to mitigate certain issues or any uncertainty that could befall you, and what the effect could be, so that once it happens, you are ready, or you make sure it doesn't happen. Then again, CIIs are also meant to participate in cybersecurity activities, and so the Cybersecurity Authority intends to have more collaboration with the CIIs or fintechs, and also to ensure that these fintechs are well informed. These fintechs are ready relative to responding to cyber security incidents. The 13th talks about adopting international cybersecurity best practices, frameworks, and standards approved by the authority. And so the authority may churn out international standards which organizations will need to comply to. And already most of these standards are from the Bank of Ghana's directive. So you have fintechs having to comply, having to certify to ISO 27001. And I think that for Bank of Ghana, it's even part of the licensing requirements before you are granted a license to be a fintech, to make sure that you have the ISO 27001 certification, and that is an international standard for information and cybersecurity. So it is. So what that is that across the world we have we all have standards authorities in various countries, and so these standard authorities come together with experts, and then they come up with requirements or standards for specific areas. So the standard that is responsible for, or the standard that is the standard for information and cybersecurity is what we call the ISO 27001. And so periodically, the cybersecurity authority can decide that these CIIs should conform to one international standard or the other. And also, as fintechs who build applications, the 14th point seeks to say that we need to make sure that our source codes are kept secure. Our source codes, or the codes that were used to build the applications, should be kept very secure. And so these are the technical measures that are part of the directive. I just summarized it, but they are very detailed, and implementation of these is actually quite tedious. Then the last part is that it says you should report incidents to the authority once they happen. First, you need to investigate the incident. You need to report, and you need to mitigate the incidents per cybersecurity standards. So I mentioned the global standard for information security, and that has requirements on how to mitigate incidents and so on. It has a process for incident management, and so the authority, the directive is saying that any incident that occurs should be investigated, reported, mitigated, and of course it has to conform to international standards. Then there's also a cyber security emergency response team. We have a national one, and then we have sectorial one. So the team responsible for incidents in Ghana, for national incidents, so cybersecurity incidents, is what we call the SET, the National Cybersecurity or National Computer Emergency Response Team. And so once an incident occurs, either you report it to a sectorial computer emergency response team, or you report it to the National Computer Emergency Response Team. And then you also need to establish a contact. So periodically there will be information about threats that will be sent to the various CIIs or fintechs, and so these advisories will have to be sent to somebody. And what the advisory seeks to do is, it tells you about weaknesses that have been identified within systems. It tells you about what threats are around as your operations related to cybersecurity, and so it gives you that information, so that if you have these weaknesses within your environment, you quickly mitigate them. And then once you perform any security assessment which seeks to identify weaknesses within your environment, the directive says that you have to report these weaknesses within 72 hours of identification to the authority as well. And so this sums up the directive for the CIIs, which was issued out by the Ministry of Communications, and also the Cybersecurity the Director General of the Cybersecurity Authority.
Okay, thank you so much, Ni. Thank you. Usually when we are discussing acts, it can be boring, but you've really broken it down, very simplified for us to understand. Thank you. So the act is Act 1038, right, in 2020. Yes, so if you want more information, you can get the act and read about it. It's more on the regulations and activities surrounding the country, which is in Ghana. And then he also delved into the critical information infrastructure, which has 13 sectors, right? So Fintech, of which we are part of, and also the directives, the CI directives, which has the policy, the technical and organizational measures, and incident reporting as well. But quickly, so for this Cybersecurity Act, does it also speak to, let's say, an organization and its individual departments and how they play into it?
Yes, it does. So the policy will speak to all those aspects of the organization. So cybersecurity, mainly we say focus on people, processes, and technology. So we have the processes of the organization, and then we have technology supporting those processes, and then we have people actually driving and manning, people driving the processes and manning technology.
Okay, cool. So everybody plays a role in cybersecurity. Okay.
Everybody,
So
and also cybersecurity is the responsibility of everybody within an organization. Everybody is responsible for cybersecurity, and so from the security guard through to the board chairman, everybody is responsible for cybersecurity. Yeah.
Okay. Also, so for organizations looking at expanding their business, right? So into another country, so it's like when expanding the operations internationally or working with foreign partners, what are some of the things to look out for to ensure compliance?
Okay, so again, so there are so many factors involved. Now, every jurisdiction has its own regulatory landscape. And so what you need to know is that once you move into another jurisdiction, then you also need to actually identify their regulatory landscape and their regulatory requirements, and then you actually comply to that. But more especially, if you are moving your people and processes there, that should be fine. If you're moving technology, then you also need to do a lot of risk assessment, because some organizations, some countries are high risk, okay, relative to cybersecurity. And so you also need to actually assess all that before you actually move into the foreign. But more especially, risk assessment is key. So before you do anything, and I mean even cybersecurity, before we implement measures, we do a risk assessment, because you want to be sure that the measures you are going to implement would actually be fit for purpose and use.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let me go to my chat. I see some private messages coming to me, so I'll quickly take them. Okay, so Abuna, what are the key responsibilities of businesses under the Cybersecurity Act, and what penalties are involved for non-compliance?
Okay, so yes, again, those are the measures I've espoused. However, the Cybersecurity Authority, which is mandated to ensure that organizations actually implement these measures, or are implementing the measures of the directive, is now actually building capacity. And once it does so, it will now be sending out assessors to actually audit or to actually assess the organizations as to whether or not they are meeting these directives.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this next question here. What role does the Cybersecurity Authority play in implementing the act? And how can fintech organizations collaborate with the authority?
Okay, yes. So one of the things the authority does is, aside from regulating the activities of cybersecurity activities, it licenses cybersecurity professionals like myself, it licenses cybersecurity organizations like mine, and also promotes awareness. So the authority will, before it starts to assess, will commence with awareness creation, creating awareness on the directive and the measures in there. Before then, assessors will be sent around to ensure that these measures are in place for fintechs.
Right. Okay, let me take this one. It's also on the Act. Okay, since we are on the Act today, how does the Act address cybercrime? And what legal provisions are in place for prosecuting the offenders?
And rightly so, there are a lot of provisions in the Act, and there are a lot of penalties to it. I don't know whether quite recently you will see the authority and even politicians talking about misinformation, because we are in an election year, and so the Act seeks to address all that. It seeks to address cyberbullying as well. It seeks to address any crime that is conducted on cyber or on the internet. And so the police unit is also, there's a cyber crime unit, and they're also building capacity. Remember that the law is quite new, and so we need to ensure that we have the right resources to be able to actually implement what is in the law. And so that unit is also there. They are also building capacity similar to the Cybersecurity Authority.
Okay. I think, all right, there's a question here, but I think it's been answered, but maybe you can throw more light on that, which is, I think from here, how can organizations in the fintech industry protect themselves from cyber threats while complying with the Act?
Okay, I think I have answered a whole lot.
Yes.
There are so many measures they need to put in place, and also, so the threat landscape keeps changing every now and then. It evolves, and so threats you may see last year, which was not potent, will become potent over the course of the year, and so there are ongoing measures which they have to put in place to ensure that they are always secured. And so there are so many measures. There are technical measures, there are administrative measures. So I mentioned some of the technical measures. One is they need to ensure that they have policies in place. They need to train their staff. They need to technically, so in the policy, you have controls that are controls, as I explained, are measures to mitigate risk. So these controls would have to be implemented. For instance, a control would be that you need to have a password policy. You need to make sure that your staff, your systems allow a certain length of password. The staff need to change their password frequently. They shouldn't reuse passwords, and so on and so forth. All those are, so we have the we have the technical measures, we have the administrative measures as well. One administrative measure is to train the people, whereas a technical measure is to make sure that your systems do not allow such passwords. Then you also need to do what we call vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. That is, you proactively identifying weaknesses and fixing them before they are exploited. So there are a lot of measures. And as I said, by going with some international standards like ISO 27001, that gives you a detailed sort of checklist or measures to implement to make sure that you are well protected.
Yes, thank you. During your presentation, you mentioned something about the human being not being reliable, and you gave an example with the alarm clock. I found that very, very interesting, right? So we put the technologies in place to assist us, manage the cyber attacks. the importance of cybersecurity in organizations and even in the world or environment that we find ourselves. What is your take on ensuring that people really understand it and follow the steps? Some people feel, well, things don't really concern them, so they don't pay attention to it until it hits them. So what are some of the measures people should put in place, or what way should they be conscious, or how should they be conscious, of cyber attacks around them, both in the institutions and individually as well? Because we have some individuals on the calls.
Okay, so it should be awareness, 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 awareness. That is because now within an organization, everybody has his duty, and everybody has his field, his or her field. So for instance, a finance person will not just wake up and say that I'm going to look at what's happening within the cyberspace, what threats am I facing? And so it is imperative that we conduct awareness regularly, and best practice says that it should be conducted at least once a year, and then when new staff are employed, they should go through cybersecurity training. But that is in-person trainings, and continuously, monthly, weekly, quarterly, there should be some awareness creation, whether there will be banners sent around so that it's in the face of the people, and then they can know what they are meant to do. Most importantly, the main threats that users face, aside from insider threats, are social engineering. And social engineering is basically tricking people to give you information. And so that is the main vector through which or that is the about 98% of cyber attacks happen by people being tricked. So you receive an unsolicited email, you don't know where it's coming from, you just open it, you are on the internet, you see a link, you just click it, you decide to just download any attachment you find and all that. An email is sent to you from DHL. Meanwhile, you have not ordered anything from DHL, and they say, oh, click to track, and then you decide to click to track, and so on and so forth. So these things are things that we need to train employees, or as individuals, we also need to be aware of, so that we do not fall into the trap of these threat actors.
Thank you. So it's awareness, awareness, and awareness. And I like the fact that the month of October has been put in place, to create awareness for everybody towards cybersecurity. So that's very good. I will not be able to take any more questions now. So as I always see, the questions will be placed on our social media handles. Please go there, place them there, and we'll do well to answer. Nee, at this point, I would like you to give us your closing remarks. Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll say that it's been a pleasure to share a few thoughts with you. I wish we had more time, so we could take more questions, and then we could discuss more. But it's thank you. It's a pleasure to share these few thoughts with you. I say that it's an honor to be here. Thanks.
It's an honor to have you here as well. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. We are very grateful for making time with us today. So as I've said to my audience, thank you also for coming. I see first-time joiners, second-time joiners, those who have been joining us from the beginning of this webinar. Would like to say thank you. If you missed, you can go to social media handles, or if you want to share this information to a friend, a loved one, please do so. Go to our social media handles and share it. This conversation, it's very interesting because I think last two webinars we did was on customer experience, and today we are having cybersecurity, and we also have a customer service week sort of, and it's all gels very well. Because during the webinar, a lot of discussions, I think we spoke a lot about having safety and trust to our customers, and how do we do this, making sure that all the technology you've put in place are safe, and people know that the money that they have put in place is safe for them, so they can come and invest weekly and all those things. So it's very relevant at this point, and after this, let's make sure that we ensure that we are safe. Whatever we do, let's bear or wear the hat of cybersecurity so we don't fall victims of it. Okay. This month also happens to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So that's the awareness. That's very interesting as well. And the theme is you are not alone. So as we go through organizational screenings or go to the hospital for screenings, let's not forget those who have already been affected by it. We render support to them because it's not easy. The emotional torments they go through, even knowing that they have it, and also to the treatment of it, it's not easy. So let's guide and let's be with them and support them throughout the journey. Okay. At this point, I would like to thank you once again. And also, our social media handles will be placed on our screen. Please do well to go like, comment, share with your friends. We have this webinars every third Tuesday of the month. So our next webinar will be held the third week of November. Please stay tuned because it's going to be one exciting one where this time we'll be engaging you directly. So you'll be doing most of the talking as well. So tell your friends, we'll share it on our social medias, go like so you can get the notifications early and share with other people as well. Thank you. My name is Betsy Akes and I would like to sign off today. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.